Hi everyone, I'm Charlene Shirk and welcome to Digital Champions, where we speak to some of the most innovative thinkers in the digital space. And joining us today from Music City, Nashville, Tennessee is Rosie Yakob with Genius Steals. Rosie, thank you so much for joining us today on Digital Champions.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, well, tell us what you do over there at Genius Steals.
Absolutely. So Genius Steals is a nomadic creative consultancy. Nomadic meaning we are itinerant. The last time we had an apartment or home base of any kind was March 2013. Prior to that, my partner and I both worked on the agency world. These days we work with brands like Twinings, media companies like TikTok and Meta or Facebook, and then also different agencies of all shapes and sizes. That might be a PR agency, a creative agency, a digital agency, a media agency. And our goal at the heart of it is to help people solve business problems using creativity. I'm a big fan of creativity, but we're not artists just for artist's sake. We are in the business of commercial creativity, using creativity to help us make money and or make our lives easier, our work more efficient. Ultimately, we all want to work, I hope, smarter, not harder.
And so talk to me a little bit about what are the problems that you're solving for your clients. Can you give us an example?
Absolutely. I think right now, a lot of what we're seeing is this desire for creativity training. So I liken this to the need because we had so much emphasis on really small incremental growth in digital spaces. And we tracked everything and we were looking for numbers just to move slightly. And now there's been a pendulum swing back towards brand building, looking at not just short-term effects, but trying to think about longer-term impacts. So we have marketers who are used to looking at spreadsheets for solutions rather than thinking about expansively how we might look outside of our own industries, further down the street to other geographic parts of the world and see what we can steal from the best of what's out there. So our company is called Genius Steals because we believe originality is a myth. Nothing comes from nothing. However, the same is lame. So if you're just copying what other people are doing, we're not fans of that. But we say steal from the best of what's out there, adapt and transform in order for it to have an impact on your business. So a lot of creativity training, a lot of brief training. So helping marketers think about how to write inspiring creative briefs, helping agency strategists and partners write powerful propositions. So a lot of these creative routes help inspire that output that ultimately drives efficacy.
Now, can you give me a little bit of an example, like a client who you did this process with?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have worked with Activision and TikTok to help them think about how to be more creative internally. We're working with Twinings right now on the principles of creative effectiveness. So one of the big challenges as marketers is that we have to predict the success of a campaign before it goes to market. Now, measuring ROI is great, but that happens after we've already put that work into market. And these days, we need a little bit more support. We can't just rely on our gut. We need a shared vocabulary and we need understanding of what drives efficacy in different creative platforms with different challenges that we face today. So a big focus is on attention. We talk a lot about attention strategy. We know that attention is required. Without any attention, we don't have any impact. But even with low attention, we still see sales lifts. We just have to consider if we're on Facebook, we need thumb-stopping creative. So the job is very different than if we are in cinema creating a beautiful manifesto-like ad where we already have the full attention of our audience.
Now, when you're talking thumb stopping, you mean like stop the scroll? That kind of thumb stopping? I just wanted to double check. So talk to me a little bit about what you see in the market space in the next 2 years that you guys have your eyes on. You know, a lot of folks are looking at Meta. A lot of folks are looking at what's going on with cookies or video. What in your space are you keeping an eye on that would impact the work you do with your customers?
Okay, so Charlene, I'm so glad you asked. I am absolutely passionate about the hybrid working model. Now, we got onto the remote working model a little bit earlier than our pandemic times because we were doing this since 2013, working from the remote coasts of Bali and Thailand and doing projects for Coca-Cola in Atlanta from halfway across the world. But now that everyone has realized that we don't need to be in desks in offices, that presence is not a requirement in order for us to do our jobs or to be inspiring or to develop creative output. I think that we should say goodbye to all the beige offices. I'm really curious how these big ad agencies like the Saatchis, the McCanns of the world that have a lot of commercial real estate that's probably pretty expensive in these big cities. And it's really uninspiring, right? They're beige walls and boring chairs. Maybe if you're lucky, you get some colored markers or some Post-it notes. What I would love to see is offices go by the wayside. And instead, what if these big media companies invested in, say, a hotel in Tulum where people want to come work? Now everyone's not so excited about coming back to the office, but I guarantee you if we pick spaces that were cool, like Copenhagen or Tulum, somewhere that we want to be, wouldn't that be so inspiring for our creative mental stimulation, for working with partners in different parts of the world? And then also, I think we save a lot of money on the real estate. So I'm really curious to see how the shift from offices into the hybrid working model continues to develop. And I'm hopeful that we can find some clients who are excited about taking people to new physical places and maybe even letting them bring their families along. We don't need to be together all the time, but once a quarter focused on key projects. I think there's so much cool stuff that could happen in that world.
Rosie, you had me at Bali. So, you had me at Bali. So before we let you go, we always like to ask, so since your focus is on creativity and finding environments that inspire you and campaigns that inspire other people to act, what would be the one tip that you could give a business or an entrepreneur or a solopreneur that they could really start implementing tomorrow to make an impact, a creative impact on their company and their product?
Right. I mean, there's so many different ways that you could approach this, but one of my favorites, I'm a little bit of a rebel at heart. So I like to think how we can challenge conventions. If people are worried about the robots taking our jobs, well, robots do repeatable tasks. So as long as your task is not repeatable, you are not in danger of the robot taking your job. But what we could do instead is saying, okay, we don't want to just look at repeatable tasks. What are more creative? What are inspiring? What are different solutions? Let's look at what everyone else is doing and try to do something different. And it sounds a little bit tricky, but I'm telling you, you can do this in your day-to-day life. And once we start the practice easily, then we can apply it to our working world. So I'm giving you permission to eat chocolate cake for breakfast. I'm giving you permission to drink a cup of coffee right before you go to bed, although I do not take responsibility for how late you will stay up. I give you permission to walk to work, even though getting there by car or bus or public transit is much easier. Doing something just a little bit differently than the way you have done, it helps us to not be a prisoner of our own preferences. That helps us be exposed to more of the adjacent possible and to think more expansively about how we might live our lives. But ultimately, I would say, your most important project is you. So figure out how you can make your life's work. And that, to me, the rest will follow.
I love that quote. That's such a quotable quote. Don't become a prisoner of your preferences. That's you can apply it, as you said, to your personal life and to your professional life. Well, Rosie, thank you so much for taking the time to share your insight here with us today on Digital Champions.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is our pleasure. Oh my goodness, we could talk on and on, but we can't because we're running out of time. So if you'd like to learn more about Genius Steals, of course, we want you to start at dailyadbrief.com. Well, my name is Charlene Shirk. We're happy to have you today on Digital Champions, and we look forward to learning something new with you next time.